"Daddy, how'd I look?" Grace asked, twirling in front of the mirror, her skirt flowing beautifully with her movement. Sitting comfortably in an armchair, Oliver smiled warmly at her while Mrs. Olson stood by the fireplace, dabbing away her tears with a handkerchief. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," Oliver said, his voice filled with pride. "You'll be the most beautiful girl in the school, and the smartest one too." Oliver chuckled, turning to Mrs. Olson. "You always say the best this, the best that. Well, can't you look at her?" "Mr. Miller," Mrs. Olson exclaimed, "I guess I'll have to agree with you this time. She looks impeccable." As Oliver gazed at his daughter, his mind wandered back to the days when Grace first came into his life. He felt a deep gratitude for the journey that had brought them here. Oliver's so-called tough character had been instrumental in raising Grace, shaping her into the wonderful person she was becoming. Oliver was a highly motivated and determined individual with an unyielding passion for the banking industry. Throughout his career, he had worked tirelessly to achieve his goals, never settling for mediocrity. Always striving for self-improvement and aiming to make a positive impact in the world of finance, Oliver's ambition was infectious. He inspired those around him to pursue excellence in their careers. Known for his intelligence, drive, and unwavering commitment to his work, Oliver was a true leader and a valuable asset to GKB Bank, where he had worked for nearly a decade. A few years ago, Oliver, the ambitious banker, met Emily. Their relationship was casual, as Emily worked as a dancer at a club Oliver frequented to unwind. This club was popular among entrepreneurs, who conducted business there during the day and relaxed in the evening. One night, as Oliver sat at the edge of the dance floor, his attention was captured by a new dancer who had just stepped onto the stage. Her name was Emily, and Oliver was captivated when she began to move. She had a vision of grace and fluidity, and her every step was effortless and elegant. Her beauty was undeniable, but it was her dancing that indeed left Oliver spellbound. The way she moved was unlike anything he had ever seen. Each gesture, turn, and leap was perfectly executed and full of emotion. Oliver felt as though he was watching a work of art come to life before his eyes. Emily's performance utterly enraptured him, and he couldn't take his eyes off her. On their first night, Oliver attempted to invite her to his place. "Sweetie, you just completely blew my mind. I want to see you dance just for me," he said, looking into her eyes full of desire. He was sure she would be his, as he had always been able to have his pick of the dancers from the club. Oliver would almost always leave with someone, and he would go home alone on slow nights. But Emily, the new dancer, gave him a look that took him aback. "Baby, you should just go. I'm dancing here, not selling myself," she said, turning around and walking away. Oliver stood there, mouth agape in surprise. Nevertheless, he quickly regained his composure and shook his head in admiration. "She's either stupid or too smart. She's just trying to keep her value high, and it looks like it's the latter," he thought. But Emily disappeared and never showed up again. When Oliver went to look for her, he found out that she had already gone home. This had never happened to him before, and he was so angry that he went home alone without trying to replace her. He caught up with her only 2 days later, but she rejected him again. Oliver was smitten with Emily and knew he had to make her his. He was confident and determined, sure to win her over with charm and persistence. However, he didn't know that Emily had an entirely different perspective. She was a strong and independent woman who did not want to depend on anyone, especially not a man. Emily had built a life for herself that was self-sufficient and fulfilling, and she was not interested in giving that up for anyone. When Oliver made his advances, she was polite but firm in her rejection. Despite his best efforts, Emily remained resolute in maintaining her independence. Her refusal took them aback Oliver, but he quickly realized that he had underestimated the strength and resolve of this remarkable woman. Despite Emily's initial rejections, she eventually became less strict with Oliver. They started dating, but Oliver soon realized their relationship was not what he had hoped for. Emily accepted his gifts without any gratitude or affection, and it was clear to Oliver that she did not share his feelings. This only fueled Oliver's anger and frustration as he became increasingly attached to Emily despite her lack of interest. It irritated him that he was putting so much effort into the relationship only to be met with indifference from her. This inner conflict left Oliver confused and angry, trapped in a situation he did not know how to navigate. Their relationship was tumultuous, like a raging fire or a natural disaster. Emily didn't listen to him at all. They either burned with passion for each other or fought fiercely. Oliver grew tired from such a volatile relationship. One day, at Oliver's place, they argued about her lifestyle. At some point, Oliver snapped, "That's it. Quit your dancing. You're going to move in with me and start behaving. All right?" Emily looked at him, incredulous. "Move in with you as who?" "Well, as my woman," Oliver replied, but he understood what she meant. Emily sighed. "Please hear me out, Emily. I can't marry you. You're a bar dancer. I can't tell everyone I'm engaged to a bar dancer." "Of course not. You wouldn't," Emily replied, her voice cold. "I wouldn't have accepted your offer to live with you either. Sleeping with a bar dancer is not good for someone as important as you." "Emily, please," Oliver begged. "Hit the road, Jack," Emily said, turning away. Oliver jumped up, furious. "Do you even understand what you're saying? I can leave, and you'll only regret it later. And I won't come back." Oliver was deeply offended by Emily's comment, which he felt was unjust. He couldn't contain his anger and responded with physical violence, hitting Emily in the face before storming out of the apartment. Desperate to escape thoughts of Emily, Oliver headed to the bar, intending to get drunk and forget all about her. He ordered drink after drink, hoping the alcohol would dull his senses and ease his mind. At first, it seemed his plan was working. The buzz made him feel carefree and relieved from the stress of his troubled relationship with Emily. However, as the night wore on, Oliver found that instead of forgetting her, he thought about her more and more. Each glass of alcohol only seemed to bring her to the forefront of his mind. He was stuck in a vicious cycle of trying to forget and being constantly reminded of her. He knew he wouldn't find any real peace until he could find a way to let go of his feelings for her. His anger led him to get into a fight, resulting in a broken nose. As he finally stormed out into the fresh air and began sobering up a little, he realized that Emily caused all his troubles and mishaps. One night, after another drinking spree, Oliver went to Emily's place without her permission, using his key to enter her bedroom. It was early morning. He stood in front of her bed momentarily, admiring her body, which was visible in the light of the night lamp. Then he sat on the edge of the bed and started mumbling something. Emily woke up but was still half asleep and didn't know what was happening. Oliver pulled the blanket off her and lay next to her. Emily didn't say much, which was surprising for Oliver. She left in the morning, telling him she would never let him go. After that incident, Emily disappeared, and Oliver couldn't find her. Despite using all his connections, he struggled and became increasingly distressed. He was willing to do anything to see her, even if it meant disregarding social norms and marrying her, but she was nowhere to be seen. In the following months, Oliver realized how terrible he had been and deeply regretted his actions. He even considered turning himself in to the police for hitting Emily. He didn't know what had happened to her, but whatever it was, he wanted her to know he was not proud of his past behavior. He was willing to accept any punishment. 7 months it was past when the phone rang in his apartment one night. He exited the bed and answered, "Yes, it's me. Who is this?" The clock showed 3 a.m., and he assumed something had happened, but he couldn't think of anyone in his life who could be in trouble. "We're calling from the maternity hospital. Do you know Emily Williams?" Oliver didn't immediately understand what was going on. "Yes, of course," he replied, confusion and worry mixing in his voice. "But I don't understand anything. What does the maternity hospital have to do with this?" Oliver stammered. "Could you please come over? Emily passed away during childbirth, but before her death, she left a message for you. The daughter she gave birth to is also your daughter. She left a letter for you, too." "What? Emily?" "No." Oliver couldn't believe what he was hearing. He thought he was going crazy or that it was a dream. He even pinched himself to make sure he wasn't dreaming. When he realized it was real, he said, "I'll be there immediately." When Oliver arrived at the hospital, he received Emily's note. She wrote that she loved him but couldn't tolerate his past behavior. She asked him to raise their daughter as an actual princess. Oliver had not cried in many years, but he couldn't hold back his tears when he saw the baby. Oliver underwent a DNA test to take custody of Grace, confirming his paternity. Mrs. Olsen then joined their household, becoming the nanny, housekeeper, and advisor on children's issues. 5 years passed in the blink of an eye, and Grace grew up before their eyes. She transformed into a bright and intelligent child from a curious and playful toddler. Her laughter filled their home with joy, and her quick wit never failed to surprise and delight those around her. Oliver was proud of the person she was becoming and watched in amazement as she explored the world around her and discovered new interests and talents. Grace's energy was contagious, and her infectious smile brightened up even the darkest days. She had grown so much in just 5 short years, and her family looked forward to all the beautiful things she would achieve in the years to come. Today was an important day for Oliver. It was Grace's first day of school. "Well, Grace, it's time. Mrs. Olsen, are you coming with us?" The woman sighed. "I would love to, but I have a pie in the oven, and the meat is marinated. Don't forget, we have guests today in honor of the first day of school." "Oh yeah, I completely forgot. Okay, I'll see you later." "Yes, of course. Good luck, sweetheart," Mrs. Olsen said warmly. Oliver went outside with his daughter, but she suddenly stopped and looked at him with a look of horror on her face. "Dad, where's my backpack?" Oliver opened the car door with a smile. On the seat, her backpack lay, ready for her first day of school. Lay a beautiful backpack that Oliver had prepared and placed there in advance. Grace hugged her daddy. "You're the best dad," she said. Oliver smiled and replied, "No doubt." The school was bustling with activity. Oliver had spent a long time contemplating which school to send Grace to, but she decided herself. "Daddy, I don't want to go to a private school. I want to go to the public school. I have a lot of friends that are going to the public school," she said. Oliver thought it would always be possible to transfer to a private school if necessary. At the entrance to the school, Grace suddenly stopped and stared at something. She then tugged sharply at her father's sleeve, causing Oliver to worry, thinking she had stumbled or something else had happened. Grace was looking towards a girl. Oliver followed her gaze and froze. Not far from them stood a first grader who was the spitting image of Grace. The girls were so similar that one might think they were twins. Their similar outfits and backpacks intensified this feeling. Oliver blinked several times, but he saw the same thing. "What in the world?" he muttered. He firmly took Grace's hand and began to approach the girl. She was standing sideways, and the woman beside her was her mother. Something vaguely familiar about her, but Oliver couldn't place it. She was looking the other way. "Excuse me," Oliver said. When the woman turned around sharply, Oliver could hardly restrain a gasp. She looked like Emily, but it wasn't Emily. He was filled with mixed feelings of anger and surprise. At that moment, the teacher approached and happily started talking to the children. Oliver stood next to the woman who looked like Emily and remained silent. They didn't say a word. Oliver's thoughts were a jumbled mess. He understood absolutely nothing. Just a few days ago, he and Grace were at Emily's grave, and now someone who looked exactly like Emily was standing before him. When the other parents and their children left for the classroom, Oliver took the woman and the girl to the school park. "I think we need to get to know each other," Oliver said. The woman looked at her daughter. "My name is Amelia. I am Emily's twin sister, and this is my little Isabella." In Oliver's head, he had so many thoughts that any psychiatrist would gladly study him. "Amelia, I don't know how to explain all this, but even considering your sisters with Emily, our children have different fathers. Where does this similarity come from?" Amelia sighed and looked into his eyes. "Their fathers are also the same. You're the dad, Oliver." Amelia's words hit Oliver like a ton of bricks. He sat down, feeling as if he had been punched in the stomach. He struggled to process what she had just said. He couldn't catch his breath, and his vision was clouded. As realizing what she had just told him started to sink in, the thought of being a father to another girl was both exhilarating and terrifying. He was filled with mixed emotions and couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by the revelation. As he sat there trying to regain his composure, Oliver realized that his life was about to take a drastic turn, and he wasn't sure if he was ready for it. But that just can't be true, he stammered. I've never known you and never met you. I didn't even know that Emily had a family and relatives. She always said she was lonely. Emily has always been like that, Amelia explained. She never listened to anyone and did everything as she wanted. When our mother died, she went off the rails. Despite her supreme education and honors diploma, Emily decided to work as a dancer. I tried to tell her and persuade her many times, but in the end, we quarreled badly and didn't talk at all. That day, I came to her to try to talk to her again, but Emily was already out. She told me on the phone that I could spend the night at her place because she would hang out. I was tired and decided to stay. And that night, you showed up. I tried to explain to you, but you were unable to listen. When Emily came in the morning, she found me in tears. I told her everything, and she just kicked me out. A month later, I realized that I was pregnant, but I didn't know who you were. Amelia continued, I recently found out that Emily is no longer with us and that she had a daughter. I realized this today when I saw you and Grace. I'm shocked to see Grace so similar to Isabella. Oliver sat down and tried to digest what he had just heard. It can't be true, he thought, but little Isabella was the spitting image of Grace. They were like two peas in a pod. It wasn't a dream. They all stood there for a while, not saying anything. Oliver was still in shock, processing everything. Then he said, I still don't know what we should all do next. I should apologize to you first. I was drunk, and I wasn't controlling myself. I was sure that you were Emily. Well, you don't have to apologize anymore, Amelia replied gently. If not for that incident, I would not have Isabella. She's everything to me in this world. As Oliver sat in silence, taking in the news, he suddenly felt a warm and comforting feeling in the pit of his stomach. It slowly dawned on him that they could all be a family now with this news. The idea was both thrilling and terrifying, but he couldn't help but feel excited about the possibilities ahead. Maybe, Oliver said slowly, this is our chance to start anew, to create something beautiful out of all this chaos. Amelia nodded, her eyes softening. Maybe it is. The two of them looked at the girls, who were now giggling and holding hands, oblivious to the gravity of the conversation that had just transpired. At that moment, Oliver realized that no matter how uncertain the future, they would face it together as a family. She could picture them building a life together and creating new memories. The thought of being a father to Isabella and Grace and building a family with Amelia filled him with a sense of purpose and joy that he had never experienced before. Despite his fear and uncertainty, Oliver knew he was ready to take on this new role and be the best father he could be. He looked at Amelia with a newfound love and admiration, grateful for the opportunity to start a family together. Oliver said to Amelia, now you're not alone. Why don't you come with us to our family dinner tonight to celebrate the first day of school? The girls, who were holding hands, happily agreed to the idea. Amelia smiled and accepted the invitation. Oliver was glad that the unexpected situation had turned out well and was excited to get to know his new family better. Oliver offered to let Amelia and Isabella move into his house, as they were currently living in a cramped apartment on the outskirts. He argued that they had plenty of space and were not strangers to him. He also offered to take the girls to and from school and said Amelia could continue working and focusing on her personal life. However, he made a mental note to keep his feelings in check and to respect Amelia's privacy and independence. So, he kept his feelings to himself and focused on being an excellent father to Grace and Isabella. He watched as the girls grew closer, like sisters, and saw how Amelia had become a part of their family. He knew he could not imagine his life without her and the girls, but he did not know how to tell her this. He was stuck in a difficult situation, not knowing how to move forward with his feelings. One day, Oliver went to Emily's grave and said, Emily, I don't know what to do. I love Amelia, and I can't imagine living without her. But I'm scared to tell her. I'm afraid of losing everything. Maybe she's afraid of the same. Afraid of losing you, came a voice. Oliver was surprised to see Amelia standing by the fence with tears in her eyes. He realized that she had also come to talk to Emily. Without hesitation, he walked towards her and pulled her into an embrace. They hugged tightly, not letting go of each other for a long time. The past year's pain, fear, and uncertainty melted away as they held each other. Oliver finally confessed his love for Amelia, and she returned the sentiment. They were a family from then on: Oliver, Amelia, Grace, and Isabella. They grieved for Emily together but also celebrated the new life they had built. The past was behind them, and they were ready to move forward as a family. Oliver and Amelia continued to move forward together and had another child, a brother for Grace and Isabella. Mrs. Olson, who helped care for the children, felt up to handling all three of them and declined the offer for additional help. Oliver laughed and commented on how wonderful the Ward family was now that they were together. They all lived happily ever after, and Oliver knew that Emily would have been happy for him. He was grateful for the second chance and opportunity to love and be loved. He knew he had to move on from Emily, but he would never forget her and her impact on his life. He was grateful for his family now, and he knew they would always be there for each other through thick and thin. The story conveys a profound message about love, forgiveness, and the ability to transform one's life from mistakes and pain. Oliver, a man who once acted wrongly, found a second chance to build a happy and fulfilling family. Despite facing numerous challenges and trials, love and patience helped him overcome everything. The appearance of Amelia, Emily's twin sister, and her daughter Isabella opened a new path for Oliver. The story demonstrates that no matter how complicated and tumultuous life may be, there is always an opportunity to mend and start anew. Oliver's ability to acknowledge his mistakes and his willingness to change helped him find happiness and a new purpose in life. Oliver and Amelia's relationship grows from mutual understanding and empathy, which are crucial in building a lasting family. Grace and Isabella's integration, along with Mrs. Olson's support, creates a united and happy family. The story also reminds us of the value of forgiveness and love. Even in times of difficulty and sorrow, love and compassion can help us overcome and build a better life. This touching story about family love, forgiveness, and hope affirms that everyone deserves a second chance to start over and find happiness.